Welcome to What's the Buzz with Omega Phi Alpha. And today we're going to be talking about chapter assistance plans, or CAPS, as they're often um, summarized to. So, my name is Katie Brown, and I'm the chapter support director for Omega Phi Alpha. And I want to introduce Dani Frank, who is a current chapter success coordinator.
Yes, my name is Dani Frank. I'm a current chapter success coordinator. And when I was the president of Alpha Zeta chapter, Katie Brown was our chapter success coordinator. So it's awesome to work with her again as a CSC while she is our chapter success director.
Absolutely. So, as chapter support director, I actually work a lot with chapters who are on chapter assistance plans, and I work with their CSCs to craft their chapter assistance plans and put them on a path towards success. And I had the pleasure of working with Dani while her chapter was on a CAP, and they were very successful. Working towards the goals that we set for them. So we felt like this would be a great opportunity for us to discuss what a chapter assistance plan is and what it's like to be on one. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Katie, first question, what is a chapter assistance plan?
Awesome. So a chapter assistance plan is a plan that the national team crafts for your chapter to target areas that your chapter is struggling with or could improve on. It's a semester long plan that typically has 3 sections in it. There will be a goals section that can vary in chapter goals for recruitment or meeting national requirements or attending convention. There are action items for your chapter to achieve. And again, those are semester long action items. And then there's a section on services that the national organization provides. So we feel like this holistic plan that kind of gives a vision to the chapter will really help them as they work to improve. Uh, Commonly, chapters feel like they're getting in trouble whenever they're placed on a cap. And I just really wanted to destigmatize chapter caps because 22% of our active chapters are actually on a cap. And this is mostly preventative to help them, maybe they're wavering a little bit, and we just want to guide them back towards success. And we want to help them do that. So that's mostly what the conversation is about today.
Awesome. Katie, what are some common goals that are put on CAPS?
So common goals would be meeting a certain amount of recruiting new members. So we'll set like very ambitious recruitment goals for chapters. Or it could be saving a certain amount of money, considering if they're struggling with fundraising or setting the correct amount of local dues. There are caps that address meeting national requirements and thinking about how to integrate the national calendar into their regular meetings so that they meet those requirements and are not struggling in those areas.
And what are some common reasons that chapters are put on CAPS?
Yeah, so we assess chapters in a variety of areas when we think about who needs to be placed on a cap. Some metrics that we look at are going to be membership growth. So if we see that a chapter has declined in membership or they're not recruiting enough members, then we're going to ask them to focus on that for the next semester or two. Same thing with meeting national requirements. If we see that they're turning in chapter paperwork late or incorrectly, then we're going to place them on a cap so that they can meet those national requirements and it not be as much of a struggle for their chapter.
Awesome. What are some cool services that nationals can provide to chapters that are on CAPS?
Right. So you've had some direct experience with the services that we can provide. Um, so obviously, the first line of support for these chapters is going to be their chapter success coordinator. Each chapter has an assigned chapter success coordinator whose sole goal is to meet the needs and answer the questions of their chapter. And that's going to be your number one support. However, this is really a partnership with the national team. You're going to be working closely. For example, if your chapter is struggling with recruitment, we're going to get you in touch with our collegiate membership director. Um, or if it's finances, we're going to get you in touch with the finance team. So we can partner more closely with you if we know and identify the areas where your chapter is struggling. Additionally, we can do, well, COVID aside, we can do in-person workshops and retreats. Right now, those are going to be virtual, unfortunately, just to keep everyone safe. But those are really cool experiences where a chapter success coordinator or another member from the national team will actually travel to your chapter and lead a retreat with your chapter members and your exec board. And get some one-on-one time with you guys, get to know you, get to talk about some of the areas that you guys can improve and provide some bonding opportunities for your chapter. So hopefully we can facilitate a stronger relationship with your chapter and the national team, but also provide opportunities for connections within your chapter because we understand chapters who are struggling with membership or who are struggling with financial health, that can cause a lot of tension within the chapter. And so if we can dive into the middle and the thick of it with you and work through those issues, then we love to do that. And so that's what those workshops or retreats are targeted towards.
Awesome. Does being placed on a CAPS affect the chapter's standing or status in any way?
Absolutely not. So this is a common misconception. Um, it does not affect your chapter status at all. It's kind of like this, like putting on the like bumper rails at the bowling alley to kind of help guide you back to where you want to be. But this doesn't mean that you're in bad standing with the national organization. We've just identified some patterns that we want to help you with.
Awesome. And last question I have for you, Katie. Is being placed on a CAPS a bad thing?
I don't think so at all. I think it's actually such a cool opportunity. I think being placed on a cap is a way that you can start to talk about your vision as an exec board for your chapter and to partner more closely with the national team. So I don't view it as a negative thing at all, but I understand that being issued this plan is intimidating. So hopefully chapters who are placed on caps can watch this and feel like they're supported and that this is just to help them become more successful and efficient. So no, I don't think it's a bad thing. But now we can share Danny's experience. So, Danny, I know that you are now a chapter success coordinator. Um, but you were previously president of a chapter who was placed on a cap. So that's mostly why I wanted to talk to you today. Could you share a little background about your experience as a chapter officer when your chapter was placed on a chapter assistance plan?
Yeah, so we were definitely a struggling chapter before we were placed on the caps. We were very low on numbers. The chapter morale was down. We were really struggling with sisters showing up to events. And when we got placed on a caps, I got extremely worried. I thought that this was the step that was taken before a chapter is dissolved. That was my complete misconception, which could not be further from the truth, as you know. And being able to work with the national team, um, I mean, it changed everything. Being able to work closely with you, Katie, and you were going to your chapter success director if you didn't know, how to answer something, and being able to, suggest that the other executive board members talk with national team members that would be able to help them, it really turned us around. So I'm very grateful that we were placed on the caps and that my misconception was wrong.
Absolutely. So could you talk a little bit about um, basically what happened once you were placed on the cap? What didn't I get to come and visit you and lead a retreat with you guys?
Yeah, so that was probably the best part of the entire thing. Not only having you fly from Texas to Georgia, but being able to really just look at what the chapter was at that point, looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, the threats that we were facing, and figuring out how to we all wanted this chapter to stay alive and to thrive and really figure out with your help how to do that. So that retreat was amazing.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Um, okay, so what officer positions did you hold at your chapter?
So before I was president, I was treasurer, and then I was elected president.
Nice, nice. And what were your first thoughts when you were placed on a cap? And what did the process of being placed on a cap look like?
Yeah, so I definitely thought we were in trouble. And that is especially the two chapters I'm working with right now. I really wanted to emphasize, like, you guys are not in trouble. I feel like it brought up a lot of feelings of stress and anxiety. And just really realizing like the national team is here to help us. I think I also had some misconceptions about the national team, thinking that, they wanted to be hard on us and they wanted this and that. And I don't know, for some reason, it was kind of in my head that they thought Alpha Zeta was just a lost cause and that we were, too much trouble and, our numbers had gotten so low. And really the national team will do anything in their power to help any chapter succeed. And that is really, really what I saw, being able to work with you and everybody else.
I want to be clear to everyone who's watching this video. I never said any of those things about Alpha Zeta. um, but I totally understand that when you get word that you're on a cap, it doesn't feel good. Um, yeah, so I wanted to know, um, you know, you received the cap. What do you think your next step was?
So for me as president, it was a lot of delegating tasks, especially with our membership director, our treasurer, really making sure all those action items and all those goals were achieved and completed. Really just keeping track of everything and sitting down and working with the other executive board members to make sure that they knew that they weren't alone. I was here for them. If I couldn't answer a question, I'd either go to Katie, I'd suggest that they go to somebody else on the national team who knows more than I do. So really just making sure that we were taking care of all of those goals and action items that we had. And a big one for us was membership. Our numbers were so low that we were worried that we were going to dissolve if we didn't recruit. And so working with the collegiate membership director who knows more about recruitment than anything, so why not go to her? Working with her and making sure that our membership director was working with her was definitely one of the best decisions that we made. I think a lot of people, hear that there are these, I don't know, these like big people on the national team, and it's scary to reach out to them, but all of them are as nice as can be and they're there to help. And so I really learned to use our resources to make sure that we are doing the best that we can.
I think that's a great way to approach it. And one thing that I want to emphasize there is the fact that you mentioned that you delegated the action items. I think that when chapters receive the cap and they read through the long list of things that we want them to do, the president, I feel like they look at it and think that they have to do all of those things. And that's not our intention at all. Our intention is for the exec board and the chapter really to work together on those action items. And it shouldn't be any one person's job to achieve all of those things. It's truly a group effort. So I think that was a great approach that you had.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah. So how did you lead your exec board after you received the cap and you were on that first semester of being on a cap?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was really making sure that every exec board member knew that I was there for them, even though that, they were the membership director and they were the treasurer, like I was there to support them fully and to help them, whether it was, a suggestion or, just helping them with some ideas, or if a problem came up, being there to help them solve that problem. You know, you not being the president that just like sat back while other people struggled, being proactive, making sure that everything was being taken care of, and even if things were taken care of, making some suggestions of things that we could be doing even better. So I think just being able to be communicative and make sure that if anybody does need anything, that they know that I'm there for them. I think that was really important.
That's great. So, what services and support did you and your exec board and really just Alpha Zeta chapter receive from the national team that you appreciated? You know,
Well, there was nothing that we didn't appreciate. Let's just make that clear. It was a very big CAPS, and it was, overwhelming at first to see all these, tasks and goals. But at the end of the day, they were all very achievable and attainable. I think some of the best ones were hands down best one was the recruitment help. We, struggling with our numbers, we just didn't know how to recruit. We were not, using our university resources to the fullest. We didn't really have a problem where when we, when potential new members would show up to recruitment, they would typically, go through the process, but we just struggled with getting people there. And so, working with the national team to help us to make they have all these suggestions because they work with all these other chapters. They know what works, they know what doesn't work. And so being able to work with the national team who knows these things, who knows these things was detrimental and just truly so helpful for our chapter. And my other favorite service was the weekend retreat where Katie came down, and the first day we were with all of the actives and we did a lot of sisterhood activities. We did some service. We did some OPA education, lots of different things like that. And then the second day, we sat down with the entire executive board and we really looked at where we were and where we wanted to be. We did a SWOT analysis where we looked at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. And we really saw that overall, we realized that we all had the same goals and that we just need to work together to achieve these things. And so it was definitely, we turned our chapter around with the help of Katie and the national team by doing these things.
yeah. One thing that's really important to note is that Dani and all of her exec board, they were so open to working with me. And that's something that we really want to improve as a chapter support team is the relationship between the CSC and the chapter, because it's hard for us to know how to help your chapter if you're not communicating with us and being open with us. And we're not there to try to get you guys in trouble. We actually care a lot about our active chapters and want to see you succeed and thrive. So along that line, Dani, what was your experience in partnering with the national team for the CAP?
It was an amazing experience, and an experience that made me want to become a chapter success coordinator because I saw all the amazing things that our chapter success coordinator, Katie, was doing and how much she was helping other chapters. And I wanted to be able to, be that for other chapters. So, my biggest fear going into it was, being dissolved, this big misconception that nationals is just done with us. But that is just the furthest thing from the truth. And I really want to be there now for other chapters to, ease that stress, ease that anxiety, and work with them to build their chapter up so it's a place where sisters want to be.
Absolutely. I think that's awesome. So now that you've kind of lived through that experience, you're on the other side of it, what advice do you have for chapters who have just been placed on a CAP?
Okay, lots of advice. First of all, don't freak out. It is not a bad thing. Nationals is here to help. Nationals just wants you guys to be okay, to thrive, for your chapter to be a place where people want to be. So don't freak out. Nationals is not, you're not in trouble. Like Katie said earlier, your chapter standing is not affected. Your status doesn't change, none of that. So just don't freak out. Second piece of advice would be don't be afraid to ask for help. If you don't know how to do something, there is somebody on this national team that knows how to do it. If it's marketing, if it's, posting something to Instagram, that can be hard. All these things, somebody on the national team can help. So definitely use your resources, go to the national team. That's a big one, which can be really scary too when you don't know these people and they have all these big fancy titles, but they are, they're most of them are sisters too, and they are there to help. And then my last piece of advice would be for the president. Don't be afraid to make changes if something in your chapter isn't working for you, especially if you're placed on a CAPS. A lot of times what I found is that things that used to work for your chapter might not work for your chapter anymore. So don't be afraid to make sure that everything is relevant for your chapter now, whether it's revising the Constitution to make sure that it's relevant for the chapter that you are today. Or even looking at the local dues and seeing if all of those dues that we're asking sisters to pay are truly necessary, and looking at the service projects to make sure that these are projects that are meaningful to the sisters that are doing them today. And I guess my biggest piece of advice really would just be to make sure that all your sisters are having a good time. We want to make sure that sisters are enjoying their time and in their chapters, and so that they want to stay, stick around and be lifetime members. So that's my advice.
Wow. I don't think I could have put it any better. I think that's a great summation of what you should do when you're on a CAP. I think that's really great. Yes, I definitely seen a lot of chapter leaders who are hesitant to change their ways because that's just how it's always been done in their chapter, and they're scared of like messing up the tradition. But honestly, I think that that's a really great time to evaluate what your chapter is doing and why they're doing it. If you can't answer why you do X, Y, or Z, maybe it's not something that you guys have to keep doing, and you have the right to change it as the local chapter exec board. So I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you, Dani. Awesome. So that summarizes, oh, that's a great point. Yes, so if you have questions about chapter assistance plans in general, please reach out to me, the chapter support director. My email is support@omegaphialpha.org. However, if your chapter is placed on a CAP, you should reach out specifically to your assigned chapter success coordinator. So it's going to be the name of your chapter .csc@omegaphialpha.org. And when you're issued a CAP, it has contact information on there as well. So those are who you should talk to. Additionally, it doesn't have to be just chapter leaders who have questions about CAPs or want to know about what's going on with their chapter. We encourage all active members that if you have questions about CAPs or your chapter has just been placed on one, to please reach out to the national team. We would love to talk to you more about this process and engage with you about how your chapter can improve. So awesome. Well, that about wraps up our conversation. We want to thank all of you for listening today. And hopefully that you've seen a couple of our videos on What's the Buzz. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We're very active on all of these social media channels, and we want to engage with you on a bunch of topics. So listen in to Omega Phi Alpha.